I think we have a crisis across Europe, really, not just in particular countries. I think the idea of politics and democracy hasn't been thoroughly discussed and made accessible to many people, and also has an aura about it which I think prevents many people from participating. Many people think that politics is something that you have to go to university to study, and it's not. I mean, politics is about everyday life. But I certainly know that when people knew I was standing for election, for example, I had no experience of politics before and were surprised. But yet you shouldn't be surprised. You know, any one of us could be that person. Any one of us could say, I feel strongly about this and I want to make a difference in my community, and therefore I will put my name forward to be the spokesperson for that community. I mean, you have to feel passionately from a particular position, but also you have to know that you would have the trust of the people you represent to speak on their behalf. But I watch many people who don't consider themselves to be politicians have the attributes of a politician, of a good politician, at least, when they care about something, about injustice, when they want to make improvements in their society. So I think you see in civil society and at community level, I think you see a very good engagement. And actually, as you go into different levels of democratic structures that involve larger and larger institutions, I think that erodes and it's less visible. It seems more labyrinthine and difficult for people to understand. But if we could begin to translate more of the community level decision-making models into those different, into other models, into more governmental models, I think we would make some progress. And I'm doing things here in Parliament that is trying to shake things up a bit from that perspective. So we have some models back home, but they're often not making the most important decisions. So at very grassroots level, people are given responsibility, power for decision making, perhaps only over small local issues and not on really, really big issues, which actually we need to translate that community stakeholder engagement into these really big macro decisions as well. We have certain community partnerships working at local authority level where decisions are made about the spending of some budget headings. It's participatory budgeting, and it's a model from Brazil, in fact, which works very, very well in Brazil. And where I was living in the north of England, started using the model of participatory budgeting. I have to say there are lots of problems with it as well. Sometimes it's the same old organisations, and what participatory budgeting should do is broaden the range of organisations so it's not just the same old, same old. I think in principle participatory budgeting is a fantastic tool, but I think the practice still needs to be worked on. I've seen both good and very poor examples of participatory budgeting, so I wouldn't say it's yet a perfect tool, but in theory it should be. It should work really, really well. And maybe part of that is about training, is training people to come to the meetings, to engage with the process, to see that their participation can change something. So I think it's a kind of long game. I think we have to stay with it in order to see that it will bear some fruit. Some negative examples, I think this is important to give, would be in the distribution of some funds locally, whereby what you would want to have in your community is a wide range of different leisure activities for young people. And I watched a participatory budgeting process whereby about 6 groups who all did the same thing came and participated and kind of rent a crowd and all won money. And actually some of the other things, some of the minority activities, some of the activities for people with special special needs, for example, didn't get funding. And I felt that was a great shame. I think it's a great shame that some, if you like, organisations that need more support to do things don't seem to have that popular appeal, wouldn't get the funding. But I also took part in that process to win some money for a project that was trying to address violence against women and girls, and we won the money. So, I also saw success as well. I just think we have sometimes popular processes can play to the lowest common denominator. So in that sense, we wouldn't necessarily always get quality projects. So I think that's the issue for me about how participatory budgeting is sometimes not a good tool. But I think it has to be, and it's about how we make it a good tool. And that has to come in the education of the community. So the community themselves will see that 6 organisations getting money for the same thing and special needs disabled children not getting any money somehow isn't fair. So we have to educate. I think maybe there need to be more divisions between the different budget headings in order to make that a better process. Well, I believe in public education, and I believe that local authorities are best placed to make sure that we have equal opportunities for everybody. So I am not in favour of free schools. I find free schools very much driven by very aspirational, educated, middle-class parents who want the best for their children. And in that race for the best for their children, they will move house. Yeah, they will move house. They put the price, so the house prices go up. It just changes a whole community. And then what you get is a school of very driven, kind of aspirational, stressed out, clever children, whose parents all have pretty good jobs. And you don't have that rich diversity of school population that actually is a better reflection on society. So I am not really for free schools. I think that I'm a cooperator, and I'm actually a member of the Cooperative Party as well as the Labour Party. And the cooperative models of schools is quite interesting to look at. So these are schools which in fact have stepped outside of the local authority model, but they're taking on a very good socialist model as far as I can see. The cooperative model is about, you have to apply, you have to fulfill the 7 principles of cooperation, and they are certainly about having a just society and about having equality and about reciprocity and mutuality. So I think for me the model of cooperative schools is worth looking at. David Cameron talked about something that had been going on for years. Big society was always happening. I've been part of it for years, and I took offence to a Conservative government appropriating something that I'd been doing for decades. And big society, for me, is about inclusion, and it's about rewarding the people who put into the big society. I think the Conservative vision of big society was really just a way of reducing investment in public services. I could only see big society working in rich places, in places where people had the money and maybe they had retired and they had a pension and they had plenty of money, so they could afford to go and run the library because they don't have to worry about where the money they're going to earn and the rent they're going to pay. But you can't have that kind of big society in a place where people don't know where their next meal is coming from or how they're going to pay their rent or whether or not they're going to be in a job next week, because the big society requires a kind of stable baseline for people in community. And more our communities don't feel that. People are very anxious. They don't know if they're going to be in employment. And I think this is a really big problem. But it's also interesting to note that David Cameron doesn't talk about big society anymore. He stopped talking about it. He stopped talking about it because his form of big society, it didn't happen. It didn't happen because the kind of big society that I was part of is still there. And those people aren't in it for some kind of government award. Those people are in big society because actually it's part of their DNA. It's how they operate as a community. My experience of working in the poorest communities of the United Kingdom was that those people had the most generosity. Maybe they didn't have the money to give, but they gave their time. They would open their doors for people. They would help you if you had a problem. And it's these communities now who are making citizen taken actions to support the refugees in Calais by bringing convoys of food, of clothing, of tents, of shelter, of books, of money, of solidarity to the people in Calais. And it's the poor communities from my constituency in the northwest of England who are doing this, you know, and I'm proud of that. And these people are often people who have nothing, but they will still find something to give other people in trouble. We have an extraordinary people's movement in the UK called the People's Assembly. And the People's Assembly, its full title is the People's Assembly Against Austerity. It was set up precisely because the 99% do not feel that it is fair to pay for the mistakes of the 1%, while the 1% are still getting rewards for, being the bankers or, and we bailed out the banks, but we can't look after the poorest in society. So the People's Assembly Against Austerity has been a fantastic mass movement in the United Kingdom. It started off as a small movement, having meetings around the country, and 2 weekends ago in Manchester, we had 100,000 people, I think, on the streets of Manchester on a demonstration because of the People's Assembly Against Austerity. And it now has its little chapters, because there is a women's assembly against austerity, there is a student assembly against austerity, there are artists against austerity, there are teachers against austerity. So there are all these different chapter groups, and it operates at a very, very local level. So you can, in your town, become a member of that town's assembly against austerity, but it's linking together in a spirit of solidarity with other chapters, and there is the overarching People's Assembly Against Austerity, which you can also be part of. And these people are, they're coming together with certain celebrity figures and big names as well, but always it still is a grassroots organization, a grassroots movement, and it's growing, it's strong, it's powerful, and I think it has helped citizens to feel empowered. It has given them hope. It has made them feel that they're not by themselves when they decide to take action. Yes, it has to be bottom up. Of course it does. It has to be bottom up. I see part of what I need to do is to encourage other people who feel strongly to do what I did, which is to make the next step. And the next step is to say, I will stand for this community. If you see in me a person who can represent you at a decision-making level, at a policy level, then perhaps you would stand too. And I play a very large role back home in trying to encourage other people to stand, particularly women. And I'm really proud that there are some Muslim women in the northwest of England who have now made the decision that they would like to stand for political office at local level. And I meet with them and I support them. I give them advice and information. I try and encourage them. I've brought them here to the European Parliament to watch the work that I do here, because I think that if people can see what we do here and how we operate, and how really what you just have to do is to speak from the heart about the truth of what you know, then they will have the confidence to see that actually to be a political representative is not so far removed from your daily life.